Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Om Vishnupat Paramahansa Parivrajaka Charitutar Shatai Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Jaya Om Vishnupat Paramahansa Parivrajaka Srimad Bhagavatam Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Jai Jai. 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 Jai.
Today is the day? Karunanidhi Prabhu? Today? Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4. We're starting a new chapter, chapter 28. Puranjana becomes a woman in the next life. Text number 1. Narada uvacha Sainika bhayanam no ye Barhishman dishtakarinaha Prajvara kanyabhyam Vicherur avanim imam Narada uvacha Sainika bhayanam no ye Barhishman dishtakarinaha Prajvara kanyabhyam Vicherur avanim imam Narada uvacha Sainika bhayanam no ye Barhishman dishtakarinaha Prajvara kanyabhyam Vicherur avanim imam Ladies, please. Narada uvacha. Thank you. The great sage Narada continued to speak. Sainikaha, the soldiers, bhayanamnaha, of bhaya, fear. Ye, all of them who, Barhishman, O King Prachina Barhishat, Dishtakarinaha, the order carriers of death, Prajvara with Prajvara, Kalakanyabhyam and with Kalakanya, Vicheruhu traveled, Avanim on earth, Imam this. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Narada continued, My dear King Prachina Barhishat. Afterward, the king of the Yavanas, whose name is fear itself, as well as Prajvara, Kalakanya, and his soldiers began to travel all over the world. Purport. The period of life just prior to death is certainly very dangerous because usually at this time people are attacked by the weakness of old age as well as many kinds of disease. The diseases that attack the body are compared here to soldiers. These soldiers are not ordinary soldiers, for they are guided by the king of the Yavanas, who acts as their commander-in-chief. The word Dishtakarinaha indicates that he is their commander. When a man is young, he does not care for old age, but enjoys sex to the best of his satisfaction, not knowing that at the end of life, his sexual indulgence will bring on various diseases, which so much disturb the body that one will pray for immediate death. The more one enjoys sex during youth, the more he suffers in old age. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this chapter says Puranjana becomes a woman in his next life. As the chapter unfolds, we will hear how Kalakanya, that is old age, very lovingly embraces Puranjana, and Prajvara, the brother of fear, completely burns Puranjana's body, because Prajvara is this fever that is the fever one experiences at death, 107 degrees, and it is said that one who reaches that temperature dies immediately. And so basically Narada Muni is describing how death comes upon a person. And Kalakanya, Prajvara, Yavana Raja or Chandavega, and his soldiers. The soldiers are all the various activities, the days and the nights that are influenced by time. They take away a person's life. And this chapter gives us a practical explanation of the verses, set of verses in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna describes Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam eva iti kaunteva sadha tad bhava bhavita. Whatever is the state of one's consciousness at the time of death, the next state of existence is determined by that previous state of consciousness. That means there are consequences. The next phases of life or the next set of lives are determined by our actions in this life, at this moment. So naturally, King Puranjana was very attached to his wife and is so enamored by sexual indulgence with her that at the time of death he can only think about her. And he cannot think about anything otherworldly, he cannot think about anything that is uplifting. All he can think about is his wife. Now from a worldly perspective, that's commendable. Wow! At least he was thinking about his wife and not someone else's. Oh, how nice. But from Narada's perspective, oh, how pitiable. That although being the king or the emperor of the entire planet, all he can think about is his wife. He's warning King Prachina Barhishat here. Although King Puranjana is just the king of Panchala Desha, he's telling King Prachina Barhishat that your condition will also be like this if you don't remedy it. That you may be the emperor of the world, but you're thinking about your wife at the time of death. You're thinking about worldly, where you're thinking about very material circumstances, and that's not uplifting. At the time of death, the purpose of life is to remember Lord Narayana, Ante Narayana Smriti. That is, doesn't matter what path one takes, it may be the path of yoga, it may be the path of Vedanta study, all that might be there, but the perfection of all of it is to remember Lord Narayana at the time of death, to chant the name of Krishna at the time of death. And this whole chapter gives us a step-by-step indication of what happens when death is approaching. How Prajvara burns the body. How the conditioned soul, King Puranjana, holds on, latches on to all these conceptions, latches on to all these possessions, thinking these are mine, but is being drawn away from those things and those worldly relationships, and the fear of losing all of it that he has worked for is a very painful condition. I'm sure we've heard many stories. One of the things that I connect with it because it's funny, and also is a good example, is one I heard about it from His Holiness Romapad Maharaj. He describes a situation that as a young brahmachari he used to go using the New York subway to distribute books. One time when he was getting out of a train at the station, he saw that a group of people had gathered around one fellow who was on the platform, just ready to die. And so everyone gathers around and they naturally look at what's happening. So this fellow is on the platform in his final stages. So someone asks him, "Hey man, can we do something for you?" And he says, "Can I have a cigarette?" So someone lights a cigarette, takes the first puff and gives it to him. So he goes, "Anything else? Can we inform any one of your family members? Anything?" He says, Sally. He's thinking about his girlfriend, Sally. And gives up his body at that time. That's one way of dying. It's an unfortunate way of dying. There's another way of dying. One of the best gifts among the long list of gifts that Srila Prabhupada has given us, one of the gifts Srila Prabhupada has given us is to how to die in a very dignified manner. Because in fact everyone dies, but not everyone dies in a dignified manner. the best, the most dignified manner to leave a body is to be able to chant Krishna's name at the time of death. And to earn that dignity, one has to practice during the opportunity given in the human form of life. It's a great privilege, it's a great honor to be able to chant Krishna's name at the time of death. And that honor and privilege is available to everyone. It's not for some elite, exclusive club of human beings. It's available for everyone. However, the accessibility to that honor and privilege comes from practice. So I'm speaking this not because I've realized it, I'm speaking so that I will remind myself. But it is definitely a great honor, because to leave at such a dignified way is because the Vishnu Dutas appear to receive such a person who's leaving their body, versus the Yamadutas. So to have the Yamadutas come to receive a person leaving a body is not dignified. It's fearful. But to have the Vishnu Dutas appear, or the Acharyas appear to leave the body, is great. So there are many pastimes, many stories of even current day of how certain persons have left their bodies, even if they were not practicing devotees. Of course, this is not for us to bank on. Even if they were not practicing devotees, by the mercy of devotees and by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, they have had such fantastic opportunities. In Back to Godhead magazine, there was a story of an elderly gentleman whose son and daughter-in-law were both devotees. And this was in the early 70s. So at that time, the man thought that his son was getting into something really hippie-like, and it was so out there that he had to reject his son. So this devotee, in the course of his life, got married, and he was really practicing Krishna consciousness very nicely. And fast forward about 20 years, he came to know that his elderly father, who had rejected him, was suffering from cancer and was in his final days. This is in Florida. So this Prabhu and his wife, they went to Florida to spend some days, the final days, with his father. And even then he, because it's the final stage, how things work, he didn't reject his son. He let them stay. So every day they would stay in the father's house, and they would chant Hare Krishna, they would worship their deities, they would offer their food to Krishna. And he just kept looking at them. It was like, first so it was rejection, and then it was just indifference. And then it was a very gentle appreciation of what they were doing. But he didn't know what they were doing, nor did he really show any interest. Then as the days proceeded, it was his last couple of days. He was hospitalized. He was at home, but he was bedridden completely. And he couldn't move. So the son pleaded, please chant Krishna's name. So in those last 2 days, he learnt the Hare Krishna mantra. He couldn't even pronounce the whole thing fully, all 16 words. He didn't know the order of it. Somehow you would say Krishna, Ram, Hare, in some order, but was trying to learn. But he was so genuine that he was appreciating what his son and daughter-in-law were doing, that they were not afraid of something so horrendous like death. They seemed fearless. So on the final day, before he left his body, he suddenly woke up that last day with a beaming smile on his face. And he said to his son, I had the most wonderful dream. Oh, what is it? This elderly person, that picture you have on the altar, this elderly person, he came in my dream with a cane, and he sat on my bed and he said, don't worry, I'll take you. So now I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm just, whenever it happens, it happens. And that evening, he left his body peacefully. I'm sure there are many such stories, and I'm not doing justice recounting all of them or many of them. So at death, the fear of one's body is very intense. The fear that all that I worked for is going to be taken away from me. All that is going to be, all that I've aspired for will not be there. All these familiar faces will not be there. All the mistakes that I have made, I have no opportunity to correct them. I can only regret. And it is said that at death, our whole life flashes in front of us. Ooh. So all the things that if we were mean to someone, we said something, perhaps we didn't really mean it. We may have said it, or perhaps we meant it, we said it. The hurtful things that we said, the violence that we committed, some nice things that we may have done, or we were feeling grateful to someone and we wanted to reciprocate, we wanted to express our gratitude back, but we've just been delaying, or whatever it is. All of those opportunities, all of those flash in front of us, and we don't have an opportunity to express. This is in the life of, at least a pious person or a devotee, let's say. But in the lives of those who don't even consider what is the purpose of life, what will flash in front of them? Sometimes I know there was one devotee, I don't know, I forget the name. He was teaching some course, and he made every devotee write their own obituary. Like, what would your obituary look like? Write it down. What would you like it to look like? Write that down. So those who don't practice devotional service, unfortunately, what is it that will flash? What is it that their quality of life is all about? Here it says, fear. The king of the Yavanas, whose name is fear itself. It's fearful. Everything is fearful. So there are two categories of fear. One is a healthy fear, and the other is fear. Is it true that now I'm not talking about pure devotees yet. We're not talking about the category of persons like Prahlad Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Parikshit Maharaj. We're not talking about that category. Let's talk of categories of practicing devotees and those who are not practicing. There is something called healthy fear, and that fear is necessary. It is nice. It's proper to have. Because that fear allows for preservation of life. For example, if one says, I don't have any fear, I can go up to the 100th floor of the building and just jump down because I'm not afraid. Or I will drive without a seat belt, or I'll drive with my eyes closed because I'm not afraid. Or I'm not afraid of Maya. I can do whatever I like and I'm not afraid of Maya. In the name of preaching or giving shelter, I'll do things that will suck me away completely from devotional life. So there is a healthy fear that preserves at least life, and more importantly, that preserves whatever little devotional credit we have. Ahara nidra bhayamaithunam cha. Samanyam etat pashubhir naranam. It's there in every living entity. And that fear helps in preserving life. Then there is the unhealthy fear, which is what everyone experiences, which is what actually drives everyone. The unhealthy fear is coming from or sourced from attachments. Attachments to ideas, attachments to body, of course, attachment to the extensions of the body, attachment to even remote extensions of the body, country, nation, clan. So those fears, in this case the bhayanamna, named fear, those fears, they actually impel a person to act in a way to counteract those fears. And because a person is not trained in how to act, they act in ways that actually cause even more fear to come. Dukkhaushadam tadapi dukkham. Prahlad Maharaj says that any solution a person takes to counteract fear, the solution itself is more fearful. It is the source of even more misery because a person doesn't know how to act. So we were discussing the other day, what is the need for education, proper education? Education is meant to bring out in a person fearlessness, minimally, among other qualities. One of the fearlessness that real education is supposed to bring is fearlessness from death, fearlessness from the different permutations and combinations of material energy around them. For example, the economy is tanking. Everyone is afraid. But a really educated person, and I'm going to define what is education here, a really educated person is not afraid. Because the fearlessness comes from their shelter in Krishna. So real education has to be about one's relationship with God. Otherwise it's not called education. Janmanat jayate shudra samskarat bhaved dvija. Only when one is trained properly can one become enlightened or awakened or knowledgeable. And that training is called samskara. Samskara means another word for training. Properly cultivated, cultured in one's relationship with Krishna. Because his feet are called Abhaycharan, the feet at which there is no fear. Bhajahure mana Shri Nandanandana Abhaya Charanaravindare. That by chanting the name of Lord Vishnu or Krishna, at whose shelter there is no fear. So whatever may be the manifestation of material energy around a person, it can be the highs, it can be the lows. Because when something is at its low, there is fear. What will happen? Even when something is at its peak, there is fear. Oh, when will this go away from me? I don't want it to go away from me. When someone doesn't have something, they're afraid how they will get it. And when they have something, they're afraid how to keep it and not let it go away. So they're always fearful. So this abhaya is only in shelter at Krishna's lotus feet, or in a relationship of service with Krishna. So when there is fear, one is attacked. Because in fear one does things that doesn't consider consequences. So in this verse specifically, Prabhupada in the purport says, "For they are guided by the king of the Yavanas, who acts as their commander-in-chief." The word Dishtakarina indicates that he is their commander. So this fear, he commands the days and nights and all the soldiers to attack every living being. And when they're attacked, in defense or in the urgency to protect what they have, they act in all sorts of foolish ways. One very foolish way is when a man is young, he does not care for old age, but enjoys sex to the best of his satisfaction, not knowing that at the end of life, his sexual indulgence will bring on various diseases, which so much disturb the body that one will pray for immediate death. So, one of the arrogances, one of the way a human being is arrogant is that he does not care. So they have titles, no fear. Although they may claim no fear, their activities are all fearful. One such activity is sex indulgence. They don't care. No fear. I don't care what the consequences of this will be. This is arrogance. So human life is a life meant to live responsibly. So nowadays they have these hoardings. Drink responsibly. What does that mean? Drink responsibly. How can you drink responsibly? If you drink, you're irresponsible. Irresponsible means not aware of or don't care for consequences. I can do whatever I like. I don't care what the consequences. That is called irresponsible. Or to act or say without thinking about what the outcome will be, how it will impact others. That is also irresponsible. And the epitome, the highest order of irresponsible behavior is sexual indulgence. Because the act of sex is the highest expression of ignorance, right? The highest expression of knowledge or enlightenment is, I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. Actually, even higher than that is, I am a part and parcel servant of Krishna. So the exact opposite of that. So yesterday, for example, yesterday and day before, we were discussing the difference between love and lust. So Gokulananda Prabhu read this verse. Love means doing everything for the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. So lust is exactly opposite of that, doing everything for the satisfaction of our senses. So similarly, knowledge is, I'm a part and parcel of Krishna. And I'm eternal, fragmental, spiritual entity. The opposite of that, ignorance is, what a beautiful body, and how can I enjoy this beautiful body? So one is attracted by the covering. The skin is actually the illusion, because beneath the skin is all the ugliness of matter. The flesh, the blood, pus, urine, stool is all there. It's nicely covered with glowing skin, beautiful smile, enchanting eyes, maddening eyebrows. That was the whole Puranjana story. Attractive breasts and hips and big, broad chest and muscles and great, enchanting ways of speaking and behaving. And one doesn't consider what consequence it will bring. It's irresponsible behavior. And such irresponsible behavior at the time of death brings the greatest fear and the greatest plundering, diseases. And for such persons, time passes away very, very quickly. And not only quickly, it degrades the quality of life. So at the time of death, Prabhupada says that one will pray for immediate death. How? I don't want to suffer. This body is really hurting me so much. The bones are all messed up. The joints are all messed up. The blood quality is all terrible, so they have to keep transfusing blood. Digestive powers go away. Teeth go away, either voluntarily or involuntarily, forced or otherwise. And one doesn't want to anymore stay in such a body. Another way of describing this is the human civilization is called that they are compared to hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. So we will not go into why there are hogs and dogs and asses. But we'll go into why they are compared to camels. Camels eat thorns because in the deserts they hardly get nice, lush green leaves and grass. It's all sand and cactus. And cactus have thorns, or these trees that have these big thorns. And camels have these long necks so they can actually reach those leaves and thorns. It's tiny leaves actually. You know why leaves are small in the desert? This is not a biology class, but nevertheless. So that they don't evaporate too much water. Anyway, so camels, when they try to eat these thorns, they chew thorns and they bleed. And while they're bleeding, they're tasting their own blood. And the camel thinks, very nice. The Indian camel thinks, very nice. Very nice. So tasty. Look at those foolish people living in the cities. They cannot even taste these nice, juicy thorns. I am really enjoying this. And he thinks that the thorns are actually very tasty. When what is happening is that because the thorns are pricking his tongue and gums, he's tasting his own blood. So the human society is compared to camels because by sexual indulgence, one excretes their own semen, which is a transformation of blood. And they think, so much fun. This is the goal of life. How wonderful. And the more I can do this, the greater I am. The more I am enjoying life. Actually, they're wasting their own blood. So by one's such behaviors and such lifestyles, and naturally, to have that urges, one has to eat and drink and behave in certain ways. And all of this dilutes the quality of one's blood. And we know without good quality blood, we cannot survive. I mean, the body cannot survive. So there are many other ways the Shastras describe the bane of irresponsible sexual behavior. What to speak of the diseases that come from it. So what is the solution that people are given? Instead of abstinence, they're given the solution of contraception. Continue irresponsible behavior. Just try to protect yourself from diseases. Like that doesn't work. It is clear indication it doesn't work like that. Because the amount and the number of people suffering from sexually transmitted diseases grown like anything. It's not reduced. With all the millions of dollars that are being spent in propaganda of guarding against sexually transmitted diseases is not working because it's a growing problem. Especially in the Western countries, but it's not anymore in the Western countries. It's even in the Eastern countries. The incidences of teenage pregnancies and the consequences of that. How many young persons have children now? Irresponsible behavior. Because you cannot tell someone abstinence. Whoa, abstinence, come on. How are you asking a person to curb their natural urge? You guys are really crazy. How can you? Sex is so beautiful. It's an expression of love. Whatever is the way they describe it, just doesn't make sense. If it's an expression of love, why there is so much disease associated with it? Love should not spread disease. Spreading the love. Come on. Because that's not the way. That is not the way. Dharma aviruddha kama asmi. There is place for sexual engagement. But it comes with the understanding of responsibility and consequences of it. That is childbirth and responsibly taking care of child or children. Then it is okay. So I'll end with one anecdote of Jayadvaita Maharaj, and then we'll open for discussion. At LA Rath Yatra, he does Q&A, and it's very, very enlightening. So one such time, I only have gone to LA Rath Yatra once, and he was doing the Q&A session, so I was there. Someone came and asked him, what is your idea about, what are your views on sex? I said, sex is wonderful. I said, but I thought you guys don't engage in sex. And he said, that's correct, we don't. It is the highest form of ignorance. So the man was a little confused. So he asked Maharaj again, so should one have sex or not have sex? So Maharaj said, it depends on what is called contextual appropriateness. There is place for it, and there is called contextual appropriateness. So when he explained it, he said, for example, the President of the United States is giving giving his State of the Union speech, right? It's a very formal occasion. He's dressed up in his suit. All the House representatives and senators are there. Distinguished guests are invited. And while he is speaking, in between when he pauses, suppose he turned around and picked up a slice of pizza and bit into it while he's giving his State of the Union speech. Is it wrong? The answer is no, it's not wrong. It's just not appropriate. It just doesn't suit the occasion. Similarly, human form of life, when we are traversing the path of self-realization, engaging in sex like this is not appropriate. It just doesn't give charm to the activity. So it has its place. Having a slice of pizza has its place. You do it on a different occasion. So for like that, having a wife and having children has its place. But if all you're thinking about is the slice of pizza, regardless of where you are, and that's all you're doing, it doesn't give charm to life. Man was very convinced. Oh, very nice. So there is a track of abstinence. In fact, there's a track of abstinence for everyone. And in certain cases, there is a concession. When a person is ready and willing to take that kind of responsibility. It is not necessary for everyone, but one who takes that responsibility then has the concession or the opportunity or the track to do so. But in all of this, the ultimate pursuit is self-realization. Otherwise, life is full of fear and anxiety and disease and turmoil and all the other things that come along with irresponsible behavior. Comments, questions, thoughts? You want to add something? Yeah? Karunanidhi Prabhu, Kirtida Mataji,
Prabhu, I remember one verse in Bhagavad Gita.
One verse in Bhagavad Gita.
And the Vitaraga Bhayakrodha, Man Mana Mama Purusada. That can you explain that? I actually forgot.
Vitaraga Bhayakrodha. I Actually, today is Thursday, right? Tuesday we discussed this verse. Krishna describes that Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Putamad Bhavamagata. There are many great personalities by engaging in the cultivation of knowledge and austerity have been able to attain the Bhava platform. And to be able to get there, a person must be willing to and working on giving up attachment, fear, and anger. And Prabhupada in that purport describes beautifully what is the attachment, fear, and anger. So quickly, fear is one is working very hard, and the fear is if I don't work hard, how will I live? How can I maintain myself if I'm not working hard? If I'm not working hard to earn money and live a comfortable life, who will take care of me? It's coming up in the next verse. Bhaya is the fear of relationship. Because in this world, relationships are disappointing. One experiences betrayal, disappointment, etc. So when they are told that in the spiritual world it's all about relationship with Krishna, it's like, again? What if there is betrayal from Krishna's side? So they're afraid of anything to do with relationships and God as a person. And Krodha is because there is a lot of frustration in this realm. They cannot accept Krishna as a person. So out of their frustration, they reject God as a person. They reject the idea of afterlife. They reject the idea of higher elevation. So they say that after this life there is nothing. It's called voidism or shunyavad. Buddhism, for example. So Krishna is saying you have to overcome these hurdles by cultivating knowledge and detachment. Or tapasya is tolerance, primarily. So like that. Is that okay? Kirtida Mataji. Oh, internet. Prahlad Narasimha, you had a question? Comment? Okay. Story of? Story of who?
Rajalila Mataji.
Okay.
I don't know, it's not a story, but I just wanted to say that how she left the body. She left her body. She left the body when she was 19 years old, and she became a devotee when she was 16. She's in the Dhumra Maharaj's disciple. There's a book about her life. So she had her deities' pictures right in front of her. Was it her deities or the temple deities? I forgot. Picture of her. And her hands in the bead bag chanting, and all the devotees in the background are singing kirtan, and she left the body.
Very nice. To die fearlessly. Thank you for sharing that. Question online. Is it Chris Prabhu? Ankit Vora is another person? Hare Krishna Ankit. He's now a virtual participant of our Bhagavatam class.
So the first question that appeared was this Chris Rios, so I'll read that one first.
Hare Krishna, Chris Prabhu.
He said, Hare Krishna Nityananda Prabhu, I had a near-death experience, and although fear struck because of the particular situation, all I could remember is to chant Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
If one is not a pure devotee but remembers Krishna at the time of death, does he achieve the same result?
Sure. Krishna's guarantee is to remember him. Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram. So Krishna says, at the time of leaving this body, one who thinks of me attains me. Now, exactly how that will manifest for each person is different, but they will achieve Krishna. So in the case of Ajamila, for example, Ajamila was good Brahmana in his childhood, a young age, and then he became really irresponsible. And at the time of death, he called out his son's name Here we're talking of calling out Krishna. There he was not even thinking about Krishna. He just called his son, Narayana. He was attached to his son, Narayana. But the Vishnu Dutas appeared. And he was given another chance. There's a book called Second Chance. He went to Haridwar, perfected his life, and the same Vishnu Dutas appeared in a transcendental airplane to take him back to Godhead. And it is considered that his chanting was called Namabhas. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur argues that it's pure chanting because he was not offending the holy name. So for each person it might manifest differently, but the guarantee is that one will attain Krishna. That's the guarantee. However one chants it, knowingly, unknowingly, unintentionally, it doesn't matter. Is that okay, Chris Prabhu? Yeah. Next question.
The next question is from Ankit Vora. And he says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you please tell something about Kala and his descendants like Kala Kanya and their responsibilities? I mean, what they do, perform in the material world. And 2, who is having control over them? I.e., are they employed by Yogamaya, or they work directly for Krishna in this material world? And 3, do Kala exist in spiritual world, or it is just for material world?
I would encourage Ankit and others as well to read chapter 27, Attack by Chandavega, and chapter 28. So follow along with us. It'll be nice to read ahead the chapter so it sort of fits context for us. The chapter is really, really, really beautiful. Intense, but it's very educative. On how Kalakanya and all the agents of time work. Now, time is an energy of Krishna that has a specific function, that has many functions. One is to bring to each one of us the fruits of our karmic activity. Because time allows for or facilitates karma to sprout. Time also gives the material energy the platform to enact itself. Therefore, there is changes from boyhood to youth to old age and death, and then change again. So this experience of change is allowed for by time. And if there is no change, we don't know how to live in this world. For example, if there is a miserable condition right now, nobody would say, I don't want it to change. We want it to change. And there is a nice condition, we don't want it to change, but it changes. Another reason that time facilitates things is, in this world, every person, especially human beings, because we perceive time more than animals do, every human being is trying to make his or her situation better. Right? Otherwise, why would we go to school? Why would we work? Why would we do anything? We're trying to make our situation better. And without time, this cannot happen. So there's a whole discussion on time, but we don't have time to discuss time. And finally, is there time in the spiritual world? Well, there's a phrase that I've heard, that time is conspicuous by its absence. That means time does not affect Krishna and the residents of the spiritual world the way time affects us. The way time affects us is that our bodies become weak, emaciated, organs become they don't function well, diseases. We don't shave, the beard grows, hair grows, like that. In the spiritual realm, Krishna has eightfold pastimes that happen at different times of the day. At the same time, there is nothing called sunrise and moonrise and sunset. Yet, Krishna has eightfold pastimes throughout the day. So time is conspicuous by its absence. There is no degradation. The feature of degradation that exists with time is not experienced in the spiritual world. Things also repeat, but not the way our experience of time is, of repetition. So, another way is to go there and understand it. So we're all trying to go there. I hope that's okay, Ankit. It's short. You'll accept it.
It was just a comment based on your answer. Once Chandramali Maharaj told me that we were talking about time, and he explained how Krishna goes from his home to the fields to play with his friends and herd the cows, because actually those places that he goes are quite far from where he was staying in his mother and father's home. And so he said that the Vrindavan is shaped like a lotus flower, or it is a lotus flower. And so it's closed in the night, but in the morning it opens, and Krishna stands on the end of the petal of the lotus, and the lotus opens, and Krishna gets off, and he's wherever he wants to be very quickly. And then when it's time to come home, similarly the lotus closes, and he hops on. And so he said, similarly for us, for pure devotees, or for devotees who are very engaged in serving Krishna, Krishna will expand the time for the devotee also. That was something nice.
Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. I have a short announcement to make. Can you turn it off, please?